The Senate did a thing again.
Okay.
The Senate did a thing again. So
another one?
Last week, unanimously, the Senate never does anything unanimously.
Bipartisan, wow.
Bipartisan. They unanimously adopted a bill that would permanently make the United States be in daylight savings time. No more switching your clock ever again.
I did hear about this, but like, what I'm wondering, is it just going to make it so that like it's darker earlier in the wintertime?
Well, here's the thing, right? Marco Rubio introduced this bill.
Okay.
My hypothesis is that they gave him an easy dub because he needs it going into his election in 2022.
That's facts.
So he introduced it, they adopted it, and then come 2023, we'll switch back to daylight savings time once more, and we'll forever be in daylight savings.
Wait. So it's like, we just did the whole spring forward thing like 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to fall back again later this year.
Yeah.
And then we're going to spring forward again in 20. Why not just end it right now?
Marco Rubio wrote the bill. But there's a problem.
Okay.
We've got some contention on
We do have contention right now. We were talking about this before we started rolling, and I was like, save it for the fucking cold open.
So we need the listeners to decide who's right here.
Yeah.
My thought process, okay, right, is that we sprung forward, right? So it went from like 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., hypothetically.
2 a.m., 1 a.m. to 2 a.m.,
hypothetically. We lost an hour when we were sleeping. So my thought process, right, is if, the sun was at a certain spot and it was dark at 8 a.m., it's going to have that same darkness now at 9 a.m., which gives us longer daytime on the back end, right? And Gage is disagreeing with me. Gage is saying it's going to be darker in the winter time.
Yeah, in the winter time, though, because in the summer, like, the whole point, like, daylight savings was, like, wasn't it, like, to fucking make it so it was brighter during the day in the winter so that you use less energy, right?
Right.
So in the summertime, because, like, 2 weeks ago, before we sprung forward, I'd be waking up and it was dark. It's pitch black outside, right?
Okay.
And as I'd, get ready to do my thing, it would get brighter. So we sprung forward. So, like, say I wake up at 8 a.m. It doesn't really happen, but let's say, hypothetically, that I wake up at 8 a.m. And it was dark 2 weeks ago. Now, I wake up at 8 and it's bright, right? So then, once we get into the wintertime, we're going to fall back. And so usually in Michigan, I guess I'm only thinking within daylight savings context, but it's dark at like 5 o'clock in the winter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we never fall back, isn't it gonna be dark at like 4 o'clock in the winter?
This shit hurts my brain so much. I feel like it's gonna be brighter in the evening now.
But like how? But in the wintertime, how?
Well, it doesn't make any sense.
How? Because the sun is always time is arbitrary. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I hate it. Oh my god.
So welcome back to the show, everybody. I hope you really enjoyed that deep dive into what daylight savings time is, how it works, and how I just have a complete fucking grasp of how it is, because I'm right. So
I really hope that you enjoy that the Senate is able to pass something, even though we haven't gotten $15, no child tax credit, no action on climate change, no action on student debt, but we got daylight savings.
Facts.
We got daylight savings.
So now it'll be like bright in the mornings in winter, maybe a little bit earlier because it's going to be darker earlier.
Bro, it's going to be dark all the time when the nuclear winter hits.
Oh, so true. When the ash cloud is just constantly above the sky.
Anyways, welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. We got a loaded episode today. We'll start off with some talk about Ketanji Brown Jackson, her nomination process. Not too much, but a little bit.
Okay.
Then we got our classic Russia-Ukraine update.
Naturally.
And then we're going to talk about how the GOP actually hates freedom.
Okay.
And then we got a special segment brought to you by Gage.
A little quick investigative journalism section going on here, you know? You know me.
We're journalists. Anyway, before we get into the episode, I'm going to remind you all, check us out on social media. Check out the Patreon, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. We got to blow up on TikTok still.
That's
We've had many
explosions. That's what I'm saying.
We've had many explosions, but we need y'all to inch us up
exactly.
there. Exactly.
And speaking of things that you should do, I think you'll notice that we don't have any fucking reviews to read this week.
Detrimental for us.
What was I supposed to do when I'm sitting there in the middle of the week feeling sad and looking at a podcast just as reviews?
Yeah, what were you supposed to do? What were you supposed to do when you noticed that your car had a flat tire?
Yeah, exactly.
And that we couldn't record on Sunday of this past Sunday.
When I had to go out there and change my tire, and I'm sad about it because I'm like, fuck, I can't go record, can't drive on a spare. Bell Tire's closed today. No tire places are open. Nobody even has my tire out of the places that are open. and I go open up the podcast app and see, hey, do I have any more reviews to cheer me up? And I see nothing on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Ridiculous.
Like, I didn't realize that Bell Tire was just like a religious service now.
I didn't realize that every fucking auto shop is a religious service. That actually threw me for a loop.
Maybe workers should be made to work all the time, 24/7, even on the weekends.
Yeah.
For my convenience.
Yeah.
I'm in a rush. I got things to do.
I got a pod to record.
But we got no reviews to read this week, in simple terms. And I'm going to need y'all to get us those reviews, because we've been having like 3 or 4 each episode.
No, I know.
None today.
Riding a wave, an absolute wave.
Was Misery in Missouri just not hitting?
It was Misery in Missouri not hitting? Was we titled the one before that? Rim Job Text? Maybe that's why, actually. I take it back.
All right. Anyways, getting right into the news here. We're going to start off with a little bit of discourse around Ketanji Brown Jackson and her nomination so far. So as of today, which is Tuesday, she's only been through 2 days of her nomination process. So not a ton has happened. And we'll get into this more on the next episode just because we'll have more to cover. Mm-hmm. But I want to go through a couple of the comments I've seen, a little bit of the rhetoric.
Okay.
And the first thing I saw was actually a clip this morning of Senator Marsha Blackburn.
All right.
Her question for Ketanji Brown Jackson was, do you have a secret agenda to implement critical race theory to the Supreme Court? She said, the American people have a right to know.
Oh, really?
If you're bringing critical race theory to the Supreme Court.
Oh my fucking God, dude. The level of discourse that goes on in these sacred halls is so high. I honestly can't comprehend it.
It's like I feel like the Republican Party is trying to find a way to oppose a black woman without explicitly opposing a black woman. Like, they're trying to find any reason possible.
But isn't the critical race theory thing kind of just explicitly opposing a black woman?
She was also like, do you think America is systemically racist?
Oh my
and are you
God.
bringing critical race theory to the Supreme Court? And it's like, dog, have you read a history book? Have you looked at it? Have you looked at have you looked at the current state of America?
They haven't even read the history books that they want to ban.
Exactly. Anyway, another thing, just a common theme I've seen is a lot of people are getting angry, because I was watching this TikTok live, right?
Okay.
And it had 6,000 viewers, so the comments were just fucking disgusting.
Oh, they're popping off.
Disgusting. And a lot of them were like, she's only getting nominated because she's black, or she's only getting nominated because she's a woman, or she's only getting nominated because she's a black woman. Which is like, okay, first of all, isn't what's actually racist in this situation the fact that the Supreme Court has been dominated by a single race for all of history?
No, yeah, literally.
And that any attempt to correct that would mean that you kind of have to engage in this sort of, I guess to put it in conservative terms, affirmative action in this sense. Like, how, okay.
And that's only if you accept the framing that it is racist. That's even if you're operating within that framing, it just makes sense.
Yeah. So many people have been nominated because they're not a minority group.
Yeah.
I would guarantee you that most justices were nominated because they're a white person. They got that far because they were white. They got nominated not because of their merits. Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett were not qualified for the job. They got it because they were just basic white people.
I saw one thing where it was there have been a couple Supreme Court justices that just haven't even been through law school or haven't even ever been justices before. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. I'd never heard anything about that before.
And let's not forget that Trump said if he was going to get a third court nomination, which he did, it was going to be a woman, and then it was.
Yeah. Yeah, no, literally, where was it back then?
Let's not forget that happened, and that this kind of discourse is only happening, 1, because it's a Democrat in the White House, and 2, because she's a black woman.
Let's also not forget that there was a large portion in just human history in general where only people could only own property because they were white men.
Yeah.
Because they were rich white men. That was it. That was a very large portion of our history.
Another thing I've seen, common theme, is that, quote, she isn't qualified.
Oh my God.
Which is just the kind of rhetoric that you only exclusively see go towards black women or just women in general.
You only hear it go towards minority groups.
Yeah,
that's
minority
it. They're
groups,
the only ones who are never qualified for anything in conservatives' eyes.
Yeah, exactly. The Senate already nominated her last year under the Biden presidency to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
That is the second highest court in the land. Please, somebody explain to me how she is not qualified for this job when the same senators that are now advocating against her, some of the Republicans, are the ones that voted for her to be on the second highest court in the land.
It's because I love politics. I love it.
Like Lindsey Graham was on there today asking her questions when he voted for her to be on the DC Court of Appeals.
It's fucking ridiculous.
It's absolutely absurd. And then the last thing, which is like a common theme, and I think the narrative that they're trying to push, is that she lets pedophiles off the hook.
Oh my God, what?
Like, a lot of Republicans are just saying that she's soft on crime, like soft on pedophiles, which is just fundamentally not true.
Yeah.
Like, it just isn't true. Like, one of the Democrats that is on the committee that's handling the approvals is like, Ketanji Brown Jackson is like consistent in punishing pedophiles to the degree of the law, to the extent of the law. And they even cited a specific case where she gave a pedophile 29 and a half years in jail.
Yeah.
Like, it's absurd. It's just not true. They just make stuff up.
I love it when they just lie and get away with it. And then it just sways the entire national discourse.
Yeah. I swear, like, everybody that is against Ketanji Brown Jackson being nominated to the court just objects to the concept of black women having power.
That's precisely
like, that's all it is. Like, why are you okay with white people having dominated the Supreme Court throughout all of history, but you're not okay if somebody gets nominated while she's qualified and also a black woman? It's dumb.
It's
dumb. And like the argument there that we often hear from right wingers is that we shouldn't be doing like diversity hires.
We shouldn't be doing IPPOL.
We shouldn't be seeking diversity for diversity's sake. But I have two arguments for this. Okay.
Okay.
I have two arguments for this. First of all, representation is important because it's a utility. Like, there's utility in having representation. What I mean by that is that if people in a democracy don't see that their institutions are representative of their identity, they will not be able to trust that institution will function correctly.
Facts. And it's not even just seeing that it's representative of their identity. By virtue of representing multiple identities, you get multiple different perspectives to tackle any fucking issue that comes to the table. There's actual utility in doing it.
Yeah, and also, on top of utility, diversity is just a necessary byproduct of democracy functioning. It is something that just happens when your democracy is robust enough to account for all identities. So it's a problem when we see only white people having ever been elected to the Supreme Court, because then we can tell that something is not functioning correctly in our democracy. And the question then for conservatives is, how do you address that? Do you just ignore historical grievances? To them, that's yes. They act like they don't exist, and then they talk about critical race theory. That's
meritocracy.
So if you've been watching the nomination hearings, just know that she's more than qualified. I hope she gets nominated, and let's hope Joe Manchin doesn't pull some fuck shit out of nowhere.
Oh my God, literally, that'll be interesting. But it'll be nice to get back into our Supreme Court slander arc.
Oh, true. We did have a couple of episodes on that. Go check it out. Go to Swans to be homeless.
Exactly,
Good episode.
exactly.
Good episode.
Quick plug.
All right. Moving on to war news. So last week, Vladimir Putin appeared at a pro-Russia war in Ukraine rally. He held a rally, kind of Trump style.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to pronounce this. I'm going to try.
I was well aware of how Trumpy it was, considering fucking Hannity's coverage.
Yeah.
He's like, Putin just mimicking the strong President Donald Trump in this rally. The strong, just bulbous, super muscular, manly Trump.
Anyway, Vladimir Putin, he held a rally in, how do you say this? Luzhniki Stadium? Something like that? The rally reportedly consisted of around 200,000 people, some of which may have actually been forced to attend the rally by their employers.
I've heard that before.
Which is what the AP said. I don't know if they corroborated that claim, but that's just what I'd heard.
Okay.
And then also, Putin spoke about living in a world without Nazism. And he explicitly called Ukrainians neo-Nazis.
Dog, that's just... Everybody knows that the denazification thing is just total and complete and utter bullshit, because a lot of it's based off of Ukraine integrating Azov Battalion in their offensive, which is fucked. I do not fuck with the Azov Battalion. We don't like them over here. But Russia also, instead of just like officially incorporating Nazis into their military, they just prefer to hire them as military contractors. I can't remember the exact name of the group that they hired, but right now they're literally employing neo-Nazi militia groups.
I think Putin in his cabinet, or whatever the equivalent is in the Kremlin, just has neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
Like there's just people with like Nazi iconography tattooed onto them, onto their necks and stuff. Like everyone's Nazis.
I love it. I love it when right-wingers just lie.
I know. They just make shit up. And then at the same time, Vladimir Medinsky, a Russian negotiator that's in Ukraine.
Okay.
He said that progress has been made in the talks. They're making progress with Ukrainians.
Are they?
And that they're close to reaching an agreement on Ukraine's relationship with NATO. Ukraine did not echo the same sentiment.
I was gonna say.
Not at all. And then also in more Putin news, he's facing a lot of backlash at home, like from protesters and stuff.
Yeah.
And then he said in a press conference on the topic of protesters, he said, quote, "The Russian people will always be able to distinguish true patriots from scum and traitors,
Hey, yo.
and will simply spit them out like a gnat that accidentally flew into their mouths." spit them out on the pavement. I'm convinced that such a natural and necessary self-purification of society will only strengthen our country, our solidarity, cohesion, and our readiness to respond to any challenges.
And motherfuckers are sitting here like, yeah, dude, Putin's justified.
No, Putin's sitting here saying that he's not the Nazi. Like, Jesus Christ.
Talking about cleansing his own population?
If you hear anybody ever talking about purification as like a part of their political idea, they're a Nazi. Like, they're just a Nazi.
This is no true Scotsman, but orders of magnitude higher and worse.
And then he also said about people that are opposing him, he said they were supporting, quote, the West. And then he also said, quote, I don't condemn those that live in villas in Miami or the French Riviera, those that cannot live without foie gras, oysters, or so-called gender freedoms.
Oh, what the fuck?
It's not a problem. The problem is that many of those people are mentally there in the West and not out here with our people with Russia. They don't remember or just don't want to understand, and they are just expendable, used for the purpose of inflicting maximum damage on our people.
I like how he's talking about, like, you know, like capital pleasures, you know, like, oh, having houses in Miami, going on vacations. And then he just throws in, yeah, and if you're a boy and you like to kiss boys.
Right, bro. Like, he's just shitting on people that are like complacent with the West, and then he just shits on transgender people out of nowhere.
Like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
I bet like transgender people are like, bro, what do we do to you? Like,
doesn't Russia also have some of the strictest LGBTQ laws in just anywhere?
Oh yeah, Putin is violently anti-LGBTQ.
Oh, I love that.
Like, really bad. And that's always been a problem in Russia. Here too.
Throughout the
world. And apparently, I don't have like the list of Putin's demands in front of me, but I know they were just astronomically high. Like, just ridiculously high. But anyway, in some news from the West, actually.
Oh.
President Biden, he met with President Xi of China to discuss Russia. And China, from what I could read, was pretty wishy-washy on the situation, and they honestly have signaled support for like Ukraine and solidarity with Ukraine, but they've also signaled support for Russia. So it's like, who knows? They're kind of like the X factor here, like the unknown factor. Like they're honestly the most mysterious.
Like, wow, what are they going to do?
International figure right now.
Okay,
if I'm being honest. But of course, Taiwan came up. A country that the U.S. has pledged to defend.
It must have been an awkward conversation.
China has threatened to attack many times, but I did hear that apparently recently China had started like sailing military ships like right on the coast of Taiwan.
They've been doing that for a while,
just to flex on them.
Yeah, they've been doing that for a while. There's been a lot of exercises in the South China Sea.
Yeah, that'd be pretty tough if China used what Russia is doing as a pretext to then also invade Taiwan and be like, let's do it too.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
That'd be pretty bad. But we're gonna do a little bit of a speed run.
Okay.
Of the rest of the Russia-Ukraine news, because we've been talking about this for weeks.
Exactly.
We're gonna hit a speed run on this. So first thing, Biden called Putin a war criminal. And then the Kremlin responded something to the tune of like pot kettle. So you know how that goes. And also the accusation from Biden came after Russian forces bombed like a theater that held children and stuff.
Okay.
And had like the words children like painted outside in white paint so people could have seen.
Yeah.
So, you know, war criminal activities, but also Biden, you better relax, big man.
Yeah,
you better not be the one that's talking. And then the newest pretext for war from Russia is that Ukraine was developing biological weapons with help from the United States. And as far as I can tell, just a lie.
I know on Tucker Carlson, he started talking about that, but he started like saying they were doing gain of function research funded by the one and only Dr. Fauci. So
that's New World Order, like globalist anti-Semitic conspiracy theory type shit.
That was really something here. But I also heard that there was a missile attack on like an ammonia storage facility, and that there's a fucking ammonia cloud that's drifting. The wind is taking it. It's like a 1 kilometer ammonia cloud drifting towards like a Russian encampment, and Russia's like, oh, Ukraine just planted the bombs there to do this on purpose because they knew where the wind was gonna go, and it wasn't our missiles that we fucking bombed the area with.
I love lying in the heat of war.
I love it. I just love lying.
I love telling lies. Anyway, as far as I can tell, this is just a lie. And there is a difference, by the way, because Ukraine has biological labs in their country that like the U.S. has collaborated with them on. But that's not the same as making biological weapons.
Oh, yeah,
it's research.
Yeah.
Like scientists do research on weapons and biological agents all the time. Not necessarily for the purpose of weapons.
Scientists use like chemical toxicants all the time just in regular research. It's just a thing. Like ammonia is a important factor in like a lot of chemical reactions.
Yeah. And although this is a nuanced conversation about like biological labs and laboratories, that did not stop Tucker Carlson from being on Kremlin State Media again.
On another one.
So he got another clip on Kremlin State Media. It's a twofer. And then today, actually, Tuesday, March 22nd, Joe Biden's going to meet with European countries throughout the week to discuss diplomatic solutions. And I also heard that Poland proposed peacekeeping missions in Ukraine. So I guess they just want World War III.
Peacekeeping missions? What the fuck does that mean?
So usually the UN goes in and does peacekeeping missions after war has subsided for like humanitarian reasons.
Okay.
But I mean, like, I can only imagine that sending UN, specifically NATO forces in.
That sounds like lethal aid.
Is
like
just war.
What the fuck?
So Biden did say that there's no chance that there will ever be any U.S. troops in Ukraine.
Okay.
That's what he said.
Okay.
But that'd be I mean, Poland already pulled Nuno reverse. You know what I
mean?
They
did, yeah. That Poland has really been on some shit recently.
Would not be surprised if the European countries were like, all right, U.S., you're not going to do it. We're doing it.
We got it. We got it now. That's crazy. Okay.
My last piece of news on this, though. I think war might be done after I read this to all of you.
All right.
So Nancy Pelosi received a poem because they were the halls of Congress. They host like a St. Patrick's St. Patrick's Day like celebration every year for like the Irish members of Congress. And apparently Nancy Pelosi received this poem from somebody. I guess from Ireland, and she wanted to read it aloud.
Okay.
And so now I'm going to read it aloud to all of you.
Oh my God. All right, I'm so excited.
She said, this is Nancy Pelosi's
I haven't read it, so
just imagine.
This is my first time hearing it.
Oh, St. Patrick, he drove out the snakes with his prayers, but that's not all it takes. For the snake symbolizes an evil that rises and hides in your heart as it breaks. And the evil has risen, my friends, from the darkness that lives in some men. But in sorrow and fear, that's when saints can appear. To drive out those old snakes once again. And they struggle for us to be free from the psycho in this human family. Ireland's sorrow and pain is now the Ukraine. And St. Patrick's name is now Zelensky.
That doesn't even fucking rhyme. It doesn't even fucking work. This sounds like something that I would have wrote in the 6th grade poetry unit for fucking language arts.
They didn't have to say Zelensky's a saint. That's so cringy.
Dude, honestly, all of the fucking Zelensky shit has been incredibly corny these past few weeks.
Right.
Like it was kind of cool for the first week, like, oh shit, bro's staying in, he's fighting, but now it's so overdone. It's the worst. I saw he did a speech where he like invoked MLK's I Have a Dream. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, Zelensky did the one thing I guess I didn't put in here from the week was that Zelensky did give like a speech to Congress asking for humanitarian aid. And a lot of
war.
Libs, and war, and a lot of libs were just like, oh, I'm crying, it's so sad, people are dying in Ukraine and stuff, let's, get directly involved and start World War III.
That's crazy. Oh my God, dude, can you believe it? Let's do a no-fly zone. But wouldn't it be crazy if we did a no-fly zone?
So imagine being, Speaker of the House, right?
Okay.
A 80-something-year-old woman hosting a St. Patrick's Day celebration, and you read this shit aloud. Oh my God.
How do they take themselves seriously?
I don't know.
Celebrities are the fucking worst.
These are the people that are like deciding our foreign policy and domestic policy. Like, oh man.
Do you know who wrote the poem?
She said someone named Bono. I don't know who that is. Do you know who that is?
Yes. Bono is he's from U2, the fucking band, right?
Oh.
But he does like a lot of charity work, but not like good, not that charity work is like good in like a leftist like sense, charity under capitalism, but he does a lot of like the bad charity work, like mission trip, like
so like
directly
soft colonialism,
directly funding neo-colonialism, like type B. Like I had a class freshman year where we talked about just like shit like that, and specifically talked about how Bono was funding like shit in some country that was devastated by a hurricane and just kind of doing the colonial thing.
Yeah, just profiting off of the tax incentives.
Mega liberal thing, So that's fun.
And Nancy Pelosi read that. She said Bono sent it to her. So they must have...
Directly? They DM? He hit the DMs?
That's what she said. And then what's the thought process here, right? Is that Nancy Pelosi gets the poem, reads the poem to herself, talks with her like staff, her policy staff.
This shit is gas.
She said, should I read this at the upcoming event? They all say yes.
How many people did this go? Like, how many people had to have seen this before?
Right.
Does Bono have a direct line to Nancy Pelosi? Or did he have to hit somebody up and was like, hey, can you get me Pelosi's contact information?
They need to fire her comms team. Like,
they need to fire her. Text fire Pelosi.
But like, how are you gonna work for the Speaker of the House and then let that kind of shit happen if you're on the comms team?
No, that's facts.
It's so bad, dog. Oh my God, St. Patrick's Day. Anyway, that wraps it up on Russia-Ukraine news. Hopefully not too much pops off before this comes out because we're only recording a day early. So maybe we'll actually get the news on time. Oh, that's true.
Maybe we're up to date on things.
Yeah, maybe. Probably not, but maybe. Anyway, we're going to talk about... I put together a little section for you all today.
All right.
To go over just in general, the GOP and how they hate freedom.
Okay.
You know? Because we've been talking the last few weeks about all kinds of crazy legislation, like legislation that restricts abortion or is just staunchly anti-LGBTQ, aims to rewrite American history, whitewash it, and all kinds of other crazy shit, right? Mm-hmm. But today, I've got some actual Nazi activity.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Some actual Nazi activity in Texas in the form of book burning.
Wow, all right.
So this story actually broke a little bit early. It was late last year, actually, but we didn't cover it. But the effects are like being felt now and being manifested now. So in October of 2021, Texas State Representative Matt Krause, he wrote a list of 850 books that he thought should be removed.
Bro just looked at the titles. And maybe read the blurb on the back.
Yeah, he collected a list of 850 books that he thought should just be removed and banned from schools. Completely removed. And this include books with titles like How Prevalent is Racism in Society, a book title that said, We're All Born Free, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Pictures. Like, it's a kid's book.
What?
He wanted to ban a book called An African American and Latinx History of the United States.
Oh, I love just doing African American and Latinx erasure.
There was at least 10 books that had some kind of, like, or had the word consent in the title that he wanted to get rid of. One of them called Real Talk About Sex and Consent, What Every Teen Needs to Know.
Bro, me when I'm a libertarian.
He wanted to ban a book called Understanding Gender and at least 11 different books that focused on Roe v. Wade and abortion rights.
Is this the same bill that banned Mouse? You know that graphic novel?
I think that happened before.
And
that was like I think that was a specific school board that just took it out of their curriculum. Then it became a national news story.
You know what? I think you're right.
But that is coming after this. And was no doubt inspired by it.
Facts, which is fucked because that graphic novel is literally just about how Nazis are bad.
Yeah, and then they did a book burning. So you might be asking, what did he do to this list? You know, what did he do with this? It wasn't a bill necessarily. It didn't pass.
Please tell me he actually just like burned them symbolically on some Fahrenheit 451 shit.
He didn't do anything that cinematic, unfortunately. But what he did do was he sent a letter to the Texas Education Agency. So basically like the Department of Education. And he also sent an email to every single superintendent in the state. Texas is a big state.
Just CC'd them
He sent it to every superintendent, and he asked all of them to report what books from the list the school has.
Okay.
He wanted to know how much money the school had spent acquiring those books. And he wanted them to notify him of any books that are on the topic of sexuality, STD, HIV, AIDS, or, quote, contain material that might make students feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress because of their race or sex, or convey that a student, by virtue of their race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive.
Hold on a minute now. So, like, it's not a bill.
No.
He's just doing this.
Yeah, it's a virtue signal, I think.
So they don't have to respond. But I'd imagine because it's Texas that a good chunk of them responded.
Well, that's the thing. Is like, okay, this isn't a bill. It isn't an executive order or anything. They're not compelled to do it.
Yeah.
But some school districts listened.
Oh my God.
And they just started doing what he asked them to do.
What the fuck?
Before conservatives start going crazy and they're like, well, yeah, my children shouldn't be seeing sexually explicit content. Because that was the basis of what he was trying to do, is like, children should not be seeing like images of sex. And it's like, yes. Like,
okay,
fine.
Sure.
I agree. The problem, though, is that a lot of these books, all of these books, were trying to understand societal issues such as gender, such as consent, such as race, and how it has impacted American history. And these books weren't being read by like 7-year-olds. It was teenagers,
literally,
like 15 through 18, like trying to read these books because their school had them, and he wanted to ban them because he's racist and homophobic and sexist and everything else.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like that's literally it. But like outside of that, it's like, what's the purpose of removing books that talk about civil rights and human rights and the Supreme Court of the United States?
What's the point of removing fucking books that talk about consent? Yeah, no, Roe v. Wade, literal case law, literal just legal document. That's it.
Like, these people talk so much about loving America and wanting to teach accurate American history. Like, what specifically do you love about American history?
They talk so much.
Can you point something out that isn't just explicitly racist?
Literally. They talk so much about family values, but love it when they do things that directly make rapes go up.
Yeah.
That directly make the rate of child molestations go up, because when you don't teach kids sex ed, they don't know how to recognize when something bad is happening to them. It's, oh my fucking God.
Yeah, and there was a number of news articles that I found that detailed how protests were just like popping off at different school boards because they started to ban these books.
What?
They started
Just
to get rid of
out of nowhere,
books.
they said, "Oh, okay, all right."
They just started like listening to what this state representative had to say. They just started getting rid of the books, and the kids are like, "Hey, yo, what the fuck? I was reading that." You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's absolutely insane to think that like kids learning about gender and consent is somehow harmful to them. And I don't know why these people act. I don't know why representatives like him act as though children can't learn about history and not internalize it and blame it on themselves. You know what I mean? Like, why? Like, I learned about history as a white kid in school.
Yeah.
I learned about slavery. I didn't immediately go like, oh, yeah, that's my fault.
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
At no point during fucking U.S. history class was I like, damn, I fucking suck.
Right.
Shit, damn, I did that. Damn.
Right. Like, nobody does that. No teacher teaches it like that. They just need a false pretext to make some shit up and then not teach accurate American history, so every kid will be quite literally indoctrinated into believing what they want them to believe.
No, because it's like they literally will go and tell fucking concerned parents that teachers are going and they're taking their white kids and they're lining them up and they're telling them they should feel bad about all this slavery because they themselves are responsible to it, when in fact it's the exact opposite. I swear to God, every other month there's some viral video that pops up of like an activity where they took all of their black students and had them go pick cotton. You know what I mean? That literally happened. Like, I saw a video. I don't know how we didn't cover this on the pod. We missed it. But I saw a video popping off on TikTok about this classroom who took their black students out and had them fucking, like, pick cotton on a field trip and sing songs. That is what's actually going on. It's the opposite. Me when I lie.
Literally. And before you, like, freak out at me and say, like, well, it's not actually like Nazi book burning shit. Like, that's just, you know, him wanting to get rid of, like, it's just a political agenda. I'll remind you that when the Nazis did their book burning, back when, you know, their whole movement was just starting off, they burned books that were on gender, sexuality, femininity, racism,
we lost
history.
So much documentation about like trans rights, anything related to trans people. It's ridiculous.
The first books they burned were ones on trans people because, again, trans people have existed for all of human history. And for all of human history, as long as conservative, reactionary right-wingers have existed, they've tried to erase them.
Book burning has just always been bad. So many people talk about the greatest setback in human history was burning down the Library of Alexandria. Insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
Like, you shouldn't burn, even if, like, okay, what's the basis for free speech in America? What is the basis for free political speech? If you can't just, like, have literature, like, floating freely, like, what's the point of having banned books? Like, even for kids, like, kids can handle these very heavy, important topics. That's why they're taught history in school. Like, okay, you're not learning about the Holocaust. You're not learning about slavery in like 5th grade. You're just not. You're learning about like math and how to like add 7 and 5 together. But when you get into middle school and you get into high school, you do need to learn about these things.
Yeah.
Like, it's critical that you learn about history again, like for the simplest concept that you may not repeat this in the future. No, you're not learning about critical race theory. Nobody's learning about critical race theory. Oh my God. It's so insane. And on critical race theory, actually, I just love how they're using a word that nobody understands as a pretext to then get rid of all of American history in schools. Yeah. And they're using it to just like weaponize even against like a Supreme Court justice trying to be nominated. That just happens to be a black woman. Gotta love it.
Gotta love the country right now.
I love critical race theory. Anyway, switching gears though.
Okay.
Another Texas circumstance.
Wow.
Another Texas happening. This time, an attack on voting rights.
It's like they saw they were starting to get outshined. Like all the proverbial clout that they gained from the abortion bill was fading as crazier and crazier bills came out. So they just had to do more.
Yeah, they really did just have to do more. So we're talking about Texas. We've talked about Texas before and their terrible anti-voting laws. We've talked about how democracy's, going downhill in the United States, or maybe how it was never really a democracy to begin with.
Yeah.
And all of these changes, all of these anti-voting laws that are popping up are obviously on the pretext that last election was fraudulent, which is interesting because Texas voted for Trump. The electoral college votes went to Trump. So you would think that maybe they don't need election security laws because, I thought everything was spick and span over there.
It's almost like it's a grift.
It's almost as if all the recounts happened in states that only Joe Biden won.
Yeah, hold on a minute.
No other states that were close, like Florida or Texas or anything else or South Carolina, like nothing. Whatever.
God damn. Okay.
But anyway, they just had their primary election. Texas did.
All right.
They had their 2022 primary election that happened in March. We talked about it with Rim Job Text Guy.
Yeah.
But we found out recently that 18,000 mail-in votes were rejected during this election. 18,000 mail-in votes. And that number is just an estimate for right now. It's expected to go up as more counts come in. And you may say, what's going on? What's this massive rejection? Where's it coming from?
What's happening here?
So Texas's new voter ID law requires you to write an ID number on the absentee ballot that you send in.
Why?
The thing is, though, that this line that you're supposed to write it on is now in a very obscure place on the ballot.
Okay.
And also, it either corresponds with your social security number or your driver's license number, and they don't tell you which one to write down. So you don't know which one they have on file because you registered 30 years ago. So you have no way of knowing what number to write. And like you may say, okay, what's the big deal? They just want voter ID laws. Like, that can't be that bad. The problem is that a big chunk of voters just completely missed it.
Yeah.
They just completely missed it.
And
their votes just got thrown out.
Because it's not like this shit gets widely publicized. It's not like changes to the ballot get widely publicized or anything. Exactly. Oh, yeah. It's all by design.
But we know it's the voter ID law because 99.6% of all rejected ballots were rejected because of the ID section. There was some discrepancy with that. And of course, voters had the option to go into their clerk's office and fix it up and turn it back in. They had the option to do that.
But that's a whole nother day.
The point of absentee ballots is that you don't have to go to your clerk's office to vote. Like, that's the point. Is that you send it through the mail. So a lot of people just didn't get to vote. Just straight up did not get to vote. And I'll remind you, it is a primary election during a midterm year. That means voter turnout was low. Yeah. Lower than normal, just based on how our elections always work out.
18,000, that's probably all the fucking ballots.
18,000 is a lot. And I'll give you some statistics even. In Bexar County, they were tracking rejection rate for absentee ballots, and it may be up to 22% of all absentee ballots that were rejected. And in Harris County, they estimate that 19% of all absentee ballots were rejected. A fifth of all voters that cast their vote. That is absurd.
Just said, nah, sorry, dog.
That is just
Try
absurd.
Again next time.
It's literally hundreds of people that just don't get to vote. And like in a prime, like, okay. The foundation of our democracy is one person, one vote, right? But if in a certain state, just because of how your state law works out, you don't get to vote, like, what is that at that point? What system do we have?
I love how conservatives say Democrats, they're taking away your rights when you can't say the N-word.
Yeah.
When you can't go scream the N-word in public, they're taking away your rights. But then they go and literally take away rights.
Yeah.
They literally say, you just can't vote.
And even more evidence that this is just like the voter ID laws that they've implemented or to change in laws is that in 2018, less than 2% of ballots were rejected statewide. And in 2020, less than 1% of ballots in the election that had insane levels of voter turnout. It was 8,000 ballots total in 2020 that were tossed.
That's insane. And you know they're going to take these numbers and they're going to tout them as a positive.
That's what
they're going to say our voter ID system works.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking, is they were going to be like, look, there's 18,000 fraudulent ballots that aren't going to be counted
now. And oh my God, yeah, it's literally just going to fuel it. And then conservatives are going to say, well, 18,000 fraudulent votes were just thrown out in Texas. How do you reconcile that, huh? No, what do you mean I'm lying? What do you mean?
Yeah. And I can only guess that the majority of these ballots that were tossed out were probably voters of color. Or maybe not a majority, but like a significant portion, a disproportionate amount were probably from people of color, because we know that voter ID laws are only ever intended to hurt people of color. Same with every voter restriction law, to be honest. It's supposed to make it harder for poor people, which are disproportionately people of color, to vote. But it's just like, it's egregious. If the foundation of our democracy is one person, one vote, and some people just aren't allowed to vote because of a simple mistake, what do we do? Like, what is the point? And also, I'll remind you, it's on the pretext that the election was fraudulent in 2020, which it wasn't. So they're making up a problem that they then go to solve by making it so less people are able to vote. Gotta love that.
Insane, dude. They're getting so clever.
Yeah.
They're getting so clever, and it's so scary. It's so fucking insidious.
But anyway, I think that rounds it out for my section on this, on how the GOP hates freedom. But I just want to make a note, like voter suppression, book burning, anti-LGBTQ laws, the abolition of like gender affirming healthcare, and like all kinds of other things that have to do with education. All of it is just like an insane reaction to positive movements that the left has undertaken throughout history. Like, for example, there's always there's always a counter movement to any movement that happens on the left. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, with civil rights, there was a massive counter movement to civil rights back in the 60s. And same thing with us now is like there was a massive protest or a massive movement for Black Lives Matter that happened over 2020. And then there was a massive counter movement on the right side.
All lives matter, baby.
Because they don't have any policy positions. Like this was when I was doing research for this section. This is literally the epiphany that I had is that they don't have anything.
No, because
all of their policies are based off being anti-us. That's it.
They're defined in reaction to liberals. They're not even defined in reaction to leftists. And so I think that's why the rise of the left is scaring them so much, because now they are just calling every liberal a fucking leftist so they can just, mash all the critique into one.
Like everything that they advocate for is based on this false fear that their way of life is disappearing.
Yeah, they're snowflakes.
And people, I'll tell you that the idea that your way of life is disappearing is one that fascists love to use. Mm-hmm. They love to scapegoat minority groups by telling you that they're going to come and take something away from you. Yeah. When in reality, the people taking away from you are people like your boss, taking all of the wealth that you create when you work, and politicians like Donald Trump that will weaponize every single fear you have to stay in power. And they're really good at it. They're really good at it.
They're just fucking manipulating you. Yeah. It's insane.
And they mask these counter movements in things like parental rights or family values. Yep. But it's always based on this fear that like privileged white people in society are no longer going to be privileged the same way. Mm-hmm. It's always based on that same fear. It's like this. It's like, have you ever heard of the concept of a psychological wage? Yes. Like how back in like when slavery was still a thing, there'd be like a lot of poor white people that couldn't get jobs because all the jobs were being filled by people that were just unpaid. So you're going to use the unpaid labor. But the thing that they got in their brain, and the reason they didn't advocate to get rid of slavery, even though it would give them a job, like a wage to work for, was because they thought, at least I'm not black. At least I am not enslaved.
Facts, because they can define themselves in opposition to that. Right. And the powers that be are telling them, well, at least you aren't black.
And like, the reason that so many people never push back against a system that is so clearly destroying their lives, like people that are losing their jobs, they're losing benefits, they don't have as much buying power as they used to, they're working way more than they used to, they can barely make ends meet. The reason they never push back against that system, at least for a lot of white people, is that they can think in their mind, well, at least it's not as bad as it is for me, for as it is for other people.
At least I'm not a fucking dirty, poor person, even though they're still living paycheck to paycheck.
Right. So rather than critiquing the system, authoritarians and proto-fascists like Donald Trump will be able to convince them that it's people that are crossing the border that are taking from you, or it's the woke leftist elitists that are within corporations that are taking away from you. It's the people that are running presentations for Coca-Cola that are taking away from you.
They're all taking away from you. You are, in fact, the big victim here.
Yeah, and
everything is against you.
Like what we've seen recently is that like wokeness is the animating theme now.
Yeah, all these wokists out here.
The wokists are taking away from you. They're threatening your way of life. They're destroying what it means to be American. When in reality, what does it mean to be American?
Don't you guys remember the good old days? Remember when America was great, when only white people could do things?
Yeah. No, that's literally what it is.
It is.
Make America great again. It's just a proto-fascist the signaling tool. It's just a slogan.
You by saying that, you are automatically alienating almost every group, because it has never been great for almost anyone that isn't a white man.
Like, okay, name one time when it was great. 40s? Okay, before black people had civil rights.
Exactly. The 80s AIDS epidemic.
Right, 80s AIDS epidemic. The 70s, you really want to talk like the war on drugs, Nixon, Vietnam War. That's when it was great
the
for
fucking people. 2000s, gay people couldn't get married. There was no marriage equality.
And like, if anyone says the 2000s, like, you think America was best under George W. Bush?
Yeah, you think America was best when everybody was wearing bedazzled jeans?
Or they say the 90s, and it's like, oh, okay, you think it was best under a Democratic president, Bill Clinton?
Oh, the only budget surplus in like recent modern history?
Yeah, and then they're like, well, okay, not under Bill Clinton, but right before, so like for 1 year in 1991, before Bill Clinton. You think like, oh my God, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's just funny because the people that are following, they've been convinced by the people who are just manipulating them, the right-wing figureheads, that they're smart. They're seeing through it all. Yeah. When in fact they are just cogs in the machine, doing exactly as they're told, getting exactly as outraged. They're cogs in the outrage machine, just doing every bit their job at just fueling the conservatives.
And I saw something very recently that really just exemplified this dynamic to me. Did you see on Twitter the discourse around, what was her name? Like Lila Thomas or something, a transgender swimmer that won like first place in a race?
Oh my God. Yes.
There's been like an insane amount of discourse of people using, I think her name's like Lila Thomas. I can't remember her exact name, but it was a transgender athlete, transgender woman who won first place in like a swimming competition for the NCAA. She won first place. Everyone lost their mind and said, look, trans women competing in sports is just unacceptable. It means that cisgender women are never going to be able to win.
Yeah.
She won one race. She competed in like 5. She came in last in one of them. If she is so genetically and physically superior to cisgender women, then why is she not winning every single race? Why is it that transgender people, when they are competing in sports, there are very few of them that are competing in sports, why aren't they winning every single time?
And even when they are, honestly, how I just fucking think about it, because I don't give a shit. I don't think that trans people should be barred from competing in the gender that they are assigned. It's just like any other fucking woman who has a biological advantage. You know what I mean? It's like any other fucking woman who's just naturally tall. Okay, she is just naturally stronger. That's it, because she's a woman. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's how I think about it.
Okay, think about 2 crazy Olympians, Usain Bolt and Michael Phelps. They are quite literally built different.
Oh yeah, Michael Phelps is like, it's the double joints in his fucking limbs are the only reason he's able to do all that.
And Usain Bolt is literally just built to be faster than everybody.
Yeah.
Like, and Michael Phelps is just built to be like a faster swimmer than everybody. Should they be barred from competing in the Olympics simply because they're quite literally genetically superior to other people?
Like that's it. That's all it is okay, this woman just happens to be genetically better than these other women.
Yes.
Nobody is going through a transition. Nobody is spending thousands of dollars taking HRT, getting top, bottom surgery if they want to do any of this.
And it's like the regulations that are placed on trans people, especially trans women that are trying to compete in cisgender women's sports, there's crazy regulations placed on them. They have to test their hormones and make sure that they don't actually have that biological advantage that they would have if they were not in the process of transitioning. Yeah.
And they also have to wait till a certain period after the transition. Yeah. After they've started taking hormones, they have to wait.
Yeah. Also on this topic, I'll offer 2 arguments, right, of why it would be bad to bar trans women from competing in women's sports. First of all, there's a social argument, which is that it would do immense social harm to just trans people in general, to single them out and say you cannot participate in this public event simply because you are trans. And also it gets messy because it's like, are you then not going to let trans men compete in men's sports? Are you going to make a transgender league of its own? Like, that's not necessary. That seems absurd. There's just immense social harm that will come from that. And then there's political harm, because you are what a lot of right-wingers are advocating for is the state to legally discriminate against a subset of the population. You need to understand this. Anyone who's listening to this and has noticed that states like Florida or Texas or other Republican states are taking action against transgender students, especially competing in sports, they are saying that the state should intervene and legally discriminate. That is fucking psychotic.
Not very small government of you.
No. Like, they're saying that the state should come in and segregate people. Like, that's insane. That is insane.
No,
And like, there's no evidence that having transgender women compete in women's sports gives them an outsized advantage. Yet they are still advocating that the state come in and legally discriminate against people. That's psychotic. You don't care about freedom at that point.
No,
and that was the whole point of this section, is that the GOP just does not care about freedom.
They only care about their bullshit culture war.
They don't care about free speech. They don't care about people being able to democratically vote and have their voice heard. They don't care about people being able to express themselves as they want. They don't care about freedom. They don't. They're not the party of freedom. They're the party of getting their way and having the government breathe down your neck and do whatever they want.
And they are the most snowflakey.
Oh my
God.
God.
By far. Holy shit. You say one thing. You say one fucking thing, and they're just beat red.
You say, like, even if you're a centrist and you say, like, well, yeah, maybe trans people should just, be able to do.
Are you fucking kidding me right now?
They'll call you a pedophile.
You gotta be fucking kidding me right now.
The Matt Walsh voice.
If you're Ron DeSantis' fucking press secretary, you're literally a groomer. You literally want to groom kids then.
Exactly. Like, bro, like, they don't care about freedom. They don't care about freedom. That's all. I think that sums it up on this section.
All right, but while we're on the topic of conservatives just hating freedom and not being very small government, I've got this story that I noticed the other night, and I saw that it was not getting like the national attention that I think it deserves, because I think it's super fucked. So let's get into this. So the Tennessee State Comptroller just announced that he will be taking direct financial control over Mason, a 71% black small town in Tennessee. Immediately upon hearing that, you should be sussed out.
Direct state control
of the finances of this town that happens to be 71% black.
What does it mean by finances?
I don't think I've read it. So basically, what the comptroller said is that any like budget item that they want to do, any expenditure that they want to engage in over $100 has to have direct approval from their office. any budget has to be approved directly from their office. He also mentions that they can downsize like their public office, like say, okay, you don't need this many city councilmen, and they can downsize their pay.
Bro,
they have complete financial control over the town.
I just love that.
I just love that. As 71% black town, too, the white Tennessee state comptroller, the red state comptroller, right? So you should immediately be sussed out. It's pretty obvious, but let's get into it. Here's some context. Ford recently announced that it's planning to build a $5.6 billion mega campus in Stanton. The exact location that this campus is going to be in is coincidentally 4.5 miles away from Mason.
Oh, no.
Crazy, right? Crazy, right?
It's just oligopoly.
Oh, it's not. It's worse. In Mumpower's announcement, who's the Tennessee State Comptroller, he cited 20 years worth of financial trouble that the town has been in and is still dealing with. So basically, specifically in a 2016 investigation, I went out and I read the comptroller's report. I was in my research bag for this.
We'd be reading legislation.
I'm really in there. So anyway. Oh, fuck, where was I? So they found that the then mayor in 2016 and other city officials had been committing massive amounts of fraud.
Oh,
just absolutely
sounds like it.
Insane amounts of fraud. So the report found that for years, city officials had been claiming crazy amounts of overtime. In one case, some guy claimed he took literally 0 days off the entire year. And another guy claimed that he did 72 hours of overtime every week for the whole year on top of his 40-hour work week, right? Bro's working harder than a CEO. You know what I mean? So then all this absolutely exhausted the city's general fund, and they then began supplementing the general fund with money from the utility fund, specifically like the water bill, which is very illegal in of itself. That's what I was going to say. That is very illegal. Bro, you cannot do that.
They're literally just draining the city of its resources.
Oh, yeah.
For, like, private accumulation.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's insane. Right? This is before the comptroller took over, though.
Right.
Because there's going to be some more context that you need to know for that, right? And all of that had been going on since the early 2000s. Funnily enough, the administration that did this was mostly white. I'm pretty sure there was one non-white person on there, a 71% black town that has always been a majority black. You know what I mean?
I just love it when, like, city officials that are entirely white, like just a whole slate of white city officials can just drain a black city
for a black
town of all of its financial resources, and then those same black people that are losing all their financial resources that they paid for with their taxpayer money, they're being blamed for not being able to get out of their desperate circumstances, even though their city officials are the one taking money out of their water fund.
You will find that is exactly what's going on. That is exactly what's going on right here. So you can see the history of Mason is one of just, white people just exploiting the black population.
Yeah, naturally.
You know what I mean? Coming in, getting their bag, leaving them in ruin. That's it. So after the investigation, that entire administration, obviously had to leave because they were criminally indicted.
Did they go to jail?
I don't know. I think one dude might have. The superintendent might have gone to jail for theft of over $60,000, which it ended up being theft of $500,000.
Oh my God.
Because it was over multiple years of claiming 72 hours of overtime.
Bro's
working harder than a single mom.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right?
That's crazy.
So it was replaced with a much more representative government who vowed transparency, right? So this new government, being representative of the town, was, I think, all black except, say, for one maybe white person.
Okay.
So representative as
more, yeah,
government should be.
A little bit more.
Just a little bit more. As government should be, it is representative. And so the comptroller's office had new officials, these new guys, take some financial management classes and, gave them a little bit of recommendations in the report. You want to know what these recommendations were?
What were the recommendations?
Under each, instant, because you know how legal, government reports are super fucking bureaucratic and annoying to read. Under every, instance of wrongdoing, it was okay, so for this, you should have greater supervision over the payroll.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Okay.
That was it. That was all the advice that
Great
they
recommendation.
got.
Very
So
exact.
This administration just inherited ruin.
Yeah,
just
naturally.
absolute financial ruin, right? And that brings us back to, the current financial takeover. Mason is obviously still struggling. While there isn't any fraud happening anymore, the current city officials inherited the disaster. And after the Mason prison recently closed, the hole got deeper. It cut their population in half, and they lost all of the revenue from property taxes from the prison.
Wait, oh, well, yeah, okay, property tax from the prison. Why'd the population cut in half?
Because the prisoners were counting the population.
Oh. Of course.
It is a small town of only 751 people now.
Okay.
Right? So the prison absolutely fucked it over through no fault of their own. It's not their fault the prison shut down. The federal contract wasn't renewed,
Privatized prisons.
You know the pizzazz, and it was a private prison, so that's already fucked in of itself. Very
but it had slave
situation.
labor there.
Yeah.
In a majority black town.
Yeah. The optics there aren't looking too great, right? Anyway, there's not any more fraud happening, but they don't have the money to pay back the missing money from the water fund. So the comptroller's been like on their ass. They're still subject to like a shit ton of audits, right? So it'd be wrong to say they're not in financial trouble, but it would also be wrong to say the comptroller isn't taking just fucking insane and drastic actions to financially take over the town now. Because that's the essential question right here. It begs the question, why was there no substantive action taken to get this town's finances ordered beforehand?
Yeah.
Why
did the state step in and like help?
Exactly. Why after the 2016 administration, who had been in power since the early 2000s, when they absolutely fucked over the town, why didn't the state give them a loan? Why didn't they give them a little bit more guidance? Why didn't the comptroller take control of their finances then? Because Jason Mumpower has been in power for a while in Tennessee. Right?
Yeah.
Why didn't they do it then? Like, why? You know what I mean?
There's no reason, yeah.
Why is it only now, when they've been just given an unprecedented opportunity with this new Ford plant to expand the area? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I love how, because like libertarians will look at this story and be like, look, this is an example of how the state can act coercively and just destroy everything for people, get rid of the government. I'm like, yes, you're right. But then you also look at the other side and see that the only investment coming into the town is from a corporation. And you realize, like, okay, why is the only hope for these people when capital decides to come in and plant its stinky little feet in the town?
And then you also look at it from the other side of the equation, which is just white supremacy.
Oh, yes.
This is absolutely an example of white supremacy. I don't know what the fuck else it is. Like, it's not a question, again, of whether or not the town was financially fucked. They've been financially fucked for a long time. But now you're going to step in? Now you're going to take control? Because what the fuck does he care if this town misses the opportunity? What does he care if they fumble the bag and don't properly expand and take full like advantage of being so close to this new facility? The facility that will bring 6,000 jobs directly to the area and a lot more jobs to the area through construction, urban expansion of the surrounding towns. Tennessee will still see the greater benefit no matter what town it ends up in. So why does he give a fuck? The only thing different about this town is that it's majority black.
Yeah.
Insane, right? Isn't that just fucking insane? So,
conservatives will be like, well, look, he's giving black people jobs. That's what they'll say.
Look, Ford is giving black people jobs, and that's why capitalism is great, right? But so the financial takeover wasn't even the start of this. Originally, he wanted them just to relinquish their charter and be absorbed into the 75% white and 71% conservative Tipton County.
Oh my God.
He wanted them to just give up their charter. He circumvented the officials, wrote a letter directly to the civilians that said, I think that this town deserves good government and should be blessed with good government because there are good people here. So that's why you should vote to give up your charter. They didn't. They voted to keep their charter. So then he said, okay, you're done for.
Oh my God.
I'm taking over for you.
That should not be allowed.
It's also questionably legal because he in the report it says we're going to take over control of this town's finances for as long as we need to, which isn't allowed. Whenever you're doing something like this, you have to give them steps to, get financial control back. You have to give them benchmarks to hit to get it all back. He did not. He did not, which, I feel like only points to the racism here.
Yeah, I said, why didn't the state step in and help? But I didn't mean, become a dictator over the entire city such that they have no democratic power to control their community.
I just meant give them a loan.
Just, send them some money. Send the city officials that aren't corrupt some money to then reinvest based on what the people want to see.
No, exactly.
Not,
have the comptroller just,
oversight from someone you can't vote out of office.
Have the comptroller, work with them, one-on-one, personally have meetings with them. Not just, you guys are done for, this is me now. And now he can fire anybody he wants to. He can cut the pay at anybody he wants to. He is exerting complete and total economic control over this small black town. The optics, again, I hate to pull it, but you can't separate it in this situation. It's really the only substantive issue here.
Bro's literally just like a king. He's a feudal lord.
I know.
He's straight up just it's a monarchy right now.
It's fucking insane.
He just holds dominion over this entire county right now. Oh my God.
I don't fucking get it. I don't fucking get it. You know what I mean?
And
I just have to point out that this is the same mechanism by which we see neo-colonialism happen.
Oh yeah,
this is the same way we get the World Bank going in and giving loans to all these fucking third world I'm sorry,
Gage, that's outdated terminology. You mean the global south?
I know all the.
You mean the global south?
Yes, to countries in the global south.
Staying in, you have to know how authentic we are.
Anyway, it's the World Bank giving all these loans to countries in the global south just so that they can only use that to buy contractors from America because they're only given out in the US dollar, and it's stipulated they can only buy US contractors to exert economic control over regions. It's US companies coming in after disasters happen, like, oh my god, they can't fix it themselves. We need to step in. We need this American company to come in and do all the electricity, so that they are literally infrastructurally indebted to America forever.
And you know what I learned through the IMF the other day?
Okay.
I learned that, so the way that it works, like with the World Bank and the IMF and stuff like that, is that when companies are looking to do something, say like build roads, they are quite literally legally obligated to choose who is going to be the most efficient and who is the highest bidder in that circumstance.
Yeah.
They cannot choose based on companies that are within their country. They have to choose whoever offers the highest bid. And if they don't choose that company, so say I'm in Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah.
And say they choose to commission a company within Puerto Rico to stimulate their own economy to build the roads for them. If they choose that company, and that was like 7th company on the list, they can be sued in international court.
What?
And forced to pay reparations, or not reparations, but forced to pay fines to the company that wasn't chosen, that was at the top of the list. So it's quite literally that smaller countries are forced into working with major multinational corporations rather than being able to stimulate their own economy. It's quite literally not freedom. They quite literally do not have the freedom to choose to work with whoever they want. They are forced, they are compelled by nature of capitalism to work with massive corporations that are not from their country, that will just come in and do literally whatever they want and take all the economic value out of the city or out of the country and leave.
And it's also just fucking insane considering that the American dollar is so much stronger than any of these other dollars in the native country.
The world economy is based on the American dollar.
They just literally cannot compete. Their dollars are nothing in comparison to ours.
Yeah.
It's wild. We can actually underbid them by way of real damage to your wallet.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And if you don't choose us, even though we're offering the highest bid, then we can sue you
and get more fucking money.
Exactly. So we're just getting the same amount of money. And you see, it's not only U.S. companies doing that; it's a lot of Chinese companies that do it as well. But it's just massive multinational corporations that, quite honestly, it doesn't matter where they originate, because the state that they originate in cannot control them, because capital can move so easily.
Yeah.
So, this is how colonialism happens nowadays. That's why when we talk about, Russia's doing, physical imperialism, military imperialism, barging into a country and doing whatever they want, economic imperialism is just as bad. But it flies under the radar because it's seen as the cost of an economic system, the cost of being free.
That flies under the radar, and so does just explicit American colonialism, because we don't call them colonies anymore. We call them territories.
It's a different word.
It's just literally just a different word. They have no representation. Right. We just it's not a great look for us. But anyway,
Hawaii before it was a state, just a colony. That's it. That's
that
it.
We took forcibly.
Can someone tell me where the line is between a territory and a colony? It's a geographic region that you hold military power over, that you let no other country hold power over, and they also don't have their own sovereignty. What is that?
And they also aren't representative in the government. They can't really do much for them. They have no right to self-determination. I don't know, guys. It's not looking good.
Even when they've taken multiple votes to determine that either if they want to be a state or don't want to be a state and want to be their own independent country, you just don't give them the option to do that.
Crazy how America has 14 of them around the world. Absolutely wild.
And we got hundreds of military bases around the world. Kind of crazy. Crazy.
I just had to get that story out there because it's so fucked. I don't think that there hasn't been any national coverage. And when you look up Mason, Tennessee, you will be shocked, absolutely shocked, to find all of the headlines because, again, local news is insanely reactionary. I think the first one you find is Channel 5 Action News, and they say, comptroller seizing control of town in financial ruin, or something like that, because of financial mismanagement. Half the lines mention the financial mismanagement and wait to mention that, this is a majority black town. Wait to mention any of the sussy parts of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they want to justify it, because That's how neo-imperialism is justified. The only difference is intrastate, not extra-state.
Yeah, and it's just like a lot of people think of imperialism like massive, powerful countries just breathing down the neck of smaller countries, which is certainly how it happens throughout the world. But also within the state, within the United States, it's states like Tennessee and their executives breathing down the neck of small counties or just citizens in general and compelling them into doing whatever they want. It's quite literally what the police do all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the type of violence that can be exhibited by the state varies greatly. And I also want to note, like I said earlier, that it's not just the state that can compel people into doing things. It is quite literally the prospect of being immersed in the violence that poverty can inflict on you that forces someone to go to work at Ford, which coincidentally will be right nearby pretty soon. Yeah. Pretty crazy.
I love it.
Wild story.
White supremacy really just be insidious. You know what I mean?
Yeah. White supremacy, imperialism, the patriarchy. We hate it around here.
We hate it all. Oppressive structures, we don't like them.
I'd advocate for getting rid of that.
Guys, not gonna lie. I think I would take a stance against that.
If you put me as God King of the world, Supreme Overlord, I'd get rid of it.
Yeah, if we just a new political title just dropped, God Emperor, and it was us, I'd stop it all.
We'd run.
Yeah, we'd run. We'd canvass. We'd go door knocking.
Door knocking every door in the world. Get elected Supreme Overlord of the world, and then that shit would be gone.
Exactly.
Shit would be gone.
Forcibly.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'd burn all the books that say otherwise.
Is that sum it up for the episode?
I think that sums it up for this episode.
Right, that sums it up for the episode. Thank you all for listening. If you're a patron, sorry it's 2 days late.
I'm so
but
sorry.
You know it's here for you still.
You know me and my flat tire.
Yeah, you know it's here for you still. And if you are a patron, we got to give you a special thanks because we couldn't do it without you all. We couldn't do it without your financial backing.
Facts. And I appreciate you being nice to me when I said I had a flat tire.
Exactly. Even when we exhibit complete authoritarian control over the pod.
Exactly.
And over the money that you give us, we gotta still give you a special thanks.
So true.
So that's a special thanks to Cricket Scrapbook Layouts, Nikki Nine Lives, Caden Kraut, Terrence Nicholson, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Thalia Katz, 40% Spy, Omar Zuno, Mike Chaplinsky, Mattias T, John G, The B Plot, Clayton LaFour, Ash Fairblood, Mark Yeager, Sarah McRoberts, Derek Messina, and my mom. Thank you all so much.
Goated. For
supporting the show on Patreon. You're literally goated with the sauce.
Facts.
Unstoppable with a little bit of swag.
You were all honorary, quirked up white boys.
Exactly. Honorary.
Honorary.
Keep that in mind. Not official. That's us.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Have a good week.